What's up, it's Playstand, and first of all, yeah, I know my hair looks a little weird. Looks like I've never used conditioner before. Um, but today I wanted to talk about the Commander Rules Committee and kind of their role, what they do in the format, and kind of just the relation with Commander. And this is mainly spurred by one of their recent updates, which prompted a lot of people, including Saffron Olive, who is considered to be one of the more wholesome, kind content magic content creators or figures within the community, to tweet. At this point, I'm confused about the purpose of the Commander Rules Committee and what it actually does for the format. So let's go over the most recent statement. This is the July 2024 quarterly update. So about a month ago, maybe a little more. My mouse does not scroll very well. A couple major things have happened. Blah 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 blah. Really gouty here. I get it. It's a casual. At its core, it's a pretty casual for fun format, and if someone has a sticker or an attraction deck, they'd like to not have those cards be banned out from under them. But at the same time, I do kind of wish they were banned, just to make things kind of the same across the board, right? There's really no problem sticker cards, definitely not attraction cards in the format. Maybe the blank goblin is the most relevant one, but that's about it. But just kind of what's the word? But it would be nice for them to be banned, just to keep it kind of consistent across the board and keep that an unmechanic. But who cares? They're not a big deal, right? It might be a bit more consistent, but it's not a huge deal. Let's move on. Modern Horizons brought us Nadu, Winged Wisdom. It has become synonymous with drawn-out, non-deterministic turns that may or may not end the game. In a lot of ways, this card resembles Paradox Engine, but it remains to be seen whether Nadu's impact on the format will rise to that level. We'll be closely monitoring Nadu and online conversations about it to see if it self-selects to tables and pods that are prepared to deal with it. Most people do not like the use of closely monitoring, because they've said that a few times in the past, most notably in regards to Dockside and Thassa's Oracle, two cards that many people do not like one bit and think should be banned. They said, oh, we'll keep an eye on them, we're keeping an eye on them, but then really there have been no updates as far as that goes. There's been no bans or unbans in regards to them, or even just statements that said, hey, we kept an eye on it, we listened to what people are saying about it, and we decided that they are okay. There's been nothing like that. It's just, we'll keep an eye on it, and then nothing as far as those topics. Anyway, and then it says, no cards are being banned or unbanned in Commander at this time. Now, at this point, people are used to that, but still, been a long time since the last ban or unbanned, so it's just more of the same, which is nothing. Except, there's more. Silver bordered cards. Last month, inspired by the sticker and attraction changes in other formats, we started a project that's focused entirely on silver bordered cards, including unset cards as well as a number of promos that are not officially legal in Commander. The intent is to equip players with the tools they need to communicate their preferences and arrive at a shared set of expectations. We know that silver bordered cards are often contentious, and often with good reason, but we want to put the collective expertise of the Commander Advisory Group and the Rules Committee to work classifying the cards that are generally fine with little work, and ones that generally people should steer clear of. Some people like playing with silver border cards, and we want to remove as much friction as possible in their pre-game conversations. Let's see. It's set to conclude at the end of August, which is now at the time of recording. Hopefully we'll have more to communicate in September's quarterly update alongside Duskmorn. Bloomburrow, there's nothing there. Next quarterly update, September 30th, 2024. Geez, I am stuttering quite a bit. One, there is we'll be keeping an eye on it, which most people are a bit tired of at this point, because that means nothing at this point. Two, is the nothing, i.e. no changes, that people are frustrated with. And 3 is the silver border cards thing. A lot of people are confused about the decision that categorizing silver border cards only for the purpose of easier Rule Zero conversations, is the best use of the advisory committee's time, the rules committee's time, and their collective expertise. Because they're not changing the legality of any of these cards, by the way. They are all going to be, all the ones that are currently not legal are going to remain not legal in the format. This is purely for Rule Zero, which a lot of people are very frustrated by. Same thing with Nadu. They want to see it self-select instead of making changes or anything like that. They're going to be monitoring it, but they're hoping it self-selects, i.e. Rule Zero. And a lot of people, myself included, are very frustrated by that, because if you fall back to Rule Zero every time a rules change is put forward, then what is the purpose of the rules committee if you just say, okay, well, just Rule Zero? And then also just this project involving the advisory committee and the rules committee purely for the purpose of easier Rule Zeros. If I wanted to play silver bordered cards in a deck, I would. I would. I'd probably mention that they're in the deck, but who cares? Most people really don't care if there's silver bordered cards in the deck for a casual game. Historically, the people who have complained about the rules committee have been people who already had a dislike towards them, or people who play a lot of CDH, which is competitive Commander, who feel like the rules committee doesn't do anything for competitive Commander. But now it's shifted a bit towards a more general audience, people like Saffron Olive, and just this is the main r/EDH subreddit, and I take Reddit with a grain of salt, okay, but still, even in the main EDH subreddit, they haven't been super hard on them in the past, but it's been ramping up, and especially you can see these comments here. It's just being watched. When did they actually ban anything? And that was in September 2021. So with their next quarterly update, which is in about a month, it will have been 3 years since the last actual changes to the format, to any legality. And then must be hard to write a statement each quarter about nothing, because that is essentially what that statement was. It was nothing. No changes. I'm shocked. People complaining about Nadu. More issues with Nadu, blah 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 blah. Waiting to see if Nadu self-selects feels like a cop-out to me, just throwing it to Rule Zero like so much else. Because one thing that the Rules Committee says is that their ban list, their rules are essentially just a suggestion. If you have any problems with it, you can Rule Zero. Essentially, if the response to criticism over bans or lack of bans is Rule Zero, then why is the Commander Rules Committee a thing? I'm not reading these comments just to like crap all over the Rules Committee. This is because I want to kind of point out how the like average Commander player's mindset is shifting away from the Rules Committee, and people aren't happy with it right now, and they haven't been for a little bit, but it's kind of ramped up recently, especially with this update, because a lot of people, myself included, don't think that it's a good use of the advisory committee and the rules committee's time and expertise to categorize silver border cards for easier Rule Zero and not even changing legality. Come on, RC, you guys need to step down. You haven't touched the format in 3 years. Might as well give it to WotC to handle instead of releasing an article every 3 months saying we are looking at things. And that's a pretty common sentiment. A lot of people who I have talked to about the Rules Committee think that at this point it should really just go over to Wizards of the Coast, because the Rules Committee hasn't done anything in a long time. And most formats get bans. If sometimes the ban is 100% warranted, sometimes it's not, and then it later gets unbanned. But it seems like they're just very afraid to make any controversial decisions or making anyone angry. But by doing that, they are making the decision to do nothing, which is pretty controversial and makes people angry and frustrated. But I do want to say that the concept that this comment right here, the concept that not doing anything is bad is stupid. It's felt healthy as of late. Nadu is the closest thing. It's still too soon to ban. Just because they aren't doing anything doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing, but there are pain points in Commander that haven't really been addressed, like Dockside, like Nadu, because it probably won't be addressed. They'll keep an eye on it and then end up doing nothing. Dockside, Nadu, Thassa's Oracle is another big one, because people would like to see those addressed. If one of them gets banned and people get upset, and you can always just unban it 3 months later. Or even to a lesser extent, cards like Rhystic Study or the One Ring that aren't nearly as powerful as cards like Dockside, Thassa's Oracle, but go in every deck that can run them, which is for Rhystic every blue deck and the One Ring every deck, assuming you can afford one at this point. Like one of their goals is to avoid cards like that being in the format that go in every single deck and then thus cut down on the creativity in deck building. Those haven't really been addressed in any meaningful way as far as I'm aware. So especially a card like Mana Crypt that is very, very expensive and difficult to get. A lot of people can't afford a $200 card, but it goes in pretty much every deck because it's 0 mana, it ramps you 2. It hasn't really been addressed in any meaningful way as far as I know. What else is there to monitor? It's an obvious design mistake. Even people in the spoiler thread recognized it immediately. On top of power level issues, the play patterns are miserable and similar to Paradox Engine, which is already banned. If the bird doesn't get banned, Engine should be unbanned, amongst other cards that are weaker, since you can apply the same logic of self-selecting and rule zeroing it out if you don't want to play against it. And that's one of the things I was mentioning earlier. Because they fall back on rule 0 so often, it's like, okay, well then why don't you just unban all this stuff and have people self-select and rule 0? Why do you bother banning anything if you think it'll just self-select out of pods where it would be a pain point? It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense then, because it's like, what is the rules committee there for? What purpose do they serve? And this is another one. The RC loves saying they're monitoring things and then never doing anything. Don't take that verbiage as meaning anything. And that's what I mentioned earlier as well, is they said they're monitoring Dockside and Thoracle, but nothing ever came of that. Not even an update, let alone a ban of any kind. God forbid we address any problems that would require them to do anything. And I get it. It's a very popular format with lots of different ways to play. There's really not a whole lot you can do that would be universally regarded as a good decision. You're probably going to make someone angry with a change or a lack of change, but it's like, you can't just keep using rule 0 to govern the format instead of actually doing it yourselves. It's just making a lot of people question what the rules committee does for the format. Myself and apparently a growing number of people included. And that's kind of why I wanted to make this video. So I have another video in the works which is very, very in-depth about the rules committee. I go through all of the bans and their justifications on it and my thoughts on the ban and their justification. Really in-depth in their other articles. But that one's still in the works. I keep procrastinating it. I haven't worked on the script in a long time, but it's already super long. But because of this most recent statement or update, I wanted to make this video because it's a growing number of just average Magic and Commander players are beginning to wonder what the rules committee actually does. It feels like a slap in the face almost, because a lot of people are very frustrated with the lack of bans or unbans, but then they say they're going to dedicate time and energy and stuff to rule 0 conversations and making those easier for silver bordered cards, which I've only had two people so far in my entire Magic career ask about silver bordered cards. One of them has a single one in the deck that is not that bad by modern standards, and it's on flavor. And then another one had a more silver bordered themed deck, and nobody had a problem with it, right? If people want to play with these cards, these silver bordered cards, these unset cards, they're just going to do it anyway. They don't need a rule 0 rules committee categorization of all the cards to see which ones are okay and which aren't. They're just going to play them. and if they play them and then their pod doesn't like it, well then they won't play that card, or they won't play it with that pod. It's that the silver border cards or something you can self-select. Just kind of wanted to rant about this a little bit, getting like people's general opinions and injecting, you know, some of my own in here, because it's been a hot topic recently. A lot of people are frustrated. Cards like Primeval Titan or Raphelos, at least in the 99, a lot of people think, you know, they're fine at this point, but there's been not a whole lot of discussion about unbanning them. A lot of cards that were banned as commander or are banned because they would be problematic as the commander. A lot of people are frustrated that there's been not a whole lot about that, and they're gonna categorize all these silver border cards but into three different categories for all these silver border cards for easier rule 0, but they won't just do a separate banned as commander ban list. That doesn't make sense to a lot of people. It doesn't make sense to me. Like, I would love to play with Leovold in the 99 of my decks. I'd love to play with maybe Emrakul in the 99, you know. Raphelos, there's Selvala and Marwyn, which are arguably stronger, right? So a lot of people are just frustrated by this lack of action and using their time and resources for something that most people do not care for. They didn't ask for it and they just don't want. Let me know what you think. If you are interested in a more in-depth video, I can definitely keep working on that. If you're not interested, you don't want to hear me rant and complain, that's fine, that's fair. Let me know, and I won't waste any more time working on it. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this video. Again, let me know what you think, if you watched it, what you do or don't agree with. But anyway, I'll see you later.